It's cold. I have 4 more months of longing before we have the summer here in Finland again. But I also have a lot of time to think about a new design for one of my new bonsai pots. Hello there, my name is Mika and I live in Finland in this cold climate. The bonsai pot that I'm making, or at least trying to make, is going to be a crescent moon shaped pot. And the tree, I don't have that tree yet, but I was thinking about a tree in a slanting style or a semi-cascade style. The pot is going to be made in stoneware clay. But before I start, it's good to be prepared. So I cut out this piece of foam as a base or a mold for my pot, and then I cover it up with old newspapers. The papers are only there because when the clay is drying, it's much easier to get it loose. I use tape and attach it to a wooden stick that's actually drilled into this piece of chipwood board. When it feels secure enough, it's time for the clay. I roll it out with a rolling pin and turn it many times to get the right shape. The clay I use is, as I said, stoneware. It's really hardy. I can have it outside even in the winter. So this is perfect for the Finnish bonsai pots. I try not to make it too thin because I need a lot of material to work with. I flatten it out and then it's time to start making the pot. The clay is quite heavy and the gravity will just pull it down, so it might crack easily. I cut away extra material and I try to look at the pot from all sides so I can get it at least a little bit more symmetrical. More cutting and shaping. I was not really happy with the height of the bonsai pot, so I need to attach more clay to it. Always, when you attach more, remember you need to slip and score so it sticks well. I just use my fingers and a wooden tool to flatten it out, but I want it to be organic in shape. As long as the clay is really wet, it's easy to get the right shape. And you can cut and put more to it if you need to. After that, it's time to let it dry for a while. I don't want it to be totally dry because there's a lot more work to be done. So I just cover it up with plastic and feel it every now and then. 2 days have now passed and I think it feels perfect. It's almost leather hard and I just remove it from the base. The paper has now soaked a little bit of the water and it's really easy to remove everything. The first thing I do after that is flatten out the bottom. And then I use a tool to remove extra material, all the dents and imperfections. The next thing I do is try to get the balance right. So I remove a lot of clay from the upper part. Otherwise, it might just tip over. And as you can see, I use one hand to feel how thick it is, and with the tool I remove the extra clay. If it's too dry, I use a little bit of water on my fingers. Otherwise, I just use the tool. And it's now time to do the last trimmings. I want it to look exactly the way it should be. Not too deep, but still have a nice crescent shape. It's really important that you make a few holes in the bottom of the bonsai pot. If there's too much water, you might soak your bonsai, and you don't want that. And these holes are perfect to secure your bonsai to your bonsai pot with wire. After this, it's time for me to leave this bonsai pot to dry. The drying process will take about 2 weeks. This is now the dry pot, and I'm loading my kiln for the bisque fire. And voila! This is what it looks like after the first fire. The glaze that I choose is a green jade colored glaze, and I will just pour it all over my pot. I try not to have a too thin layer of the glaze, because the more glaze you have, the more color you also get to your bonsai pot. But of course, I have to be careful not to put too much, because the whole bonsai pot might stick into the kiln otherwise. I brush on all the places where I see some white spots, and because of the Finnish winter, I will also put a little bit of glaze inside of my bonsai pot. This is just to secure it from the freezing cold winter. So I brush it on and use a sponge to just get a thin layer. And with this same sponge I will clean the bottom so it will not stick to the kiln. When all of this is done, it's time to put it in the kiln. And this is the final result. A jade green bonsai pot, crescent moon shaped. Now it's only time for me to wait for the spring, so I can plan a new tree and plant a new tree in it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this might inspire you to make your own. Bye bye.